All right, we move ahead to our next guest. He got back on track with a second-round knockout win over Daniel Carey at Bellator 238 back in January. Happy to be joined by Aaron Pico. Aaron, it's been a minute, man. How are you?
I'm good. Everything's well. Just kicking it, hanging out. Not too much. So, yeah, I'm happy to do this. It's gonna be fun.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. How have you been holding up during this quarantine and this pandemic that's taken over the world for the past couple of months?
Yeah, it's been tough, but it's been bittersweet. Of course, it's cool to just be able to hang out and do things that you're not usually able to do during the week. But of course, I want to be at the gym. There's a lot of goals I set for myself. So when you can't go to the gym, it's kind of hard. But I'm getting my workouts in when I can. But for the most part, just riding my horse, cleaning stalls. Yeah, just doing that. Like I said, just getting some workouts when I can, but I'm not putting like pressure on myself. Like I have to be doing something every single day and push my body. A lot of people, always tell me that, man, you need to chill for a little bit, just relax. So, now's my time to do it and just let my body recover because I go pretty hard during training camp. So it's all good.
Have you always had a horse and had stalls and things like that throughout your life, or is this something new that's happened over the last couple of years or so?
No, I've always ridden horses. I started riding horses when I was a young kid. I took lessons. I worked at the stables, doing like trail rides and things like that. And I got away from it for a little bit because I was traveling the world so much, wrestling and doing all kinds of stuff like that. I don't have time. I didn't have time for a horse. But when I turned pro in MMA, I bought myself a horse, and it's kind of I wasn't doing as much traveling. And back in LA, like I had a stable that I'd go to and keep my horses there. But here in Albuquerque, I'm lucky enough to be able to have 2 stalls in my backyard for the horses, a little arena, and I can ride out my front gate, go out on trails, and it's pretty cool. So I'm enjoying it a lot. So, but I've ridden horses a lot of my years growing up.
So it's good to go back and kind of relive those days, and it helps you relax as well. Put your head in the right place.
Yeah, it does. I really, really enjoy it. I've just have had a passion for horses since I've been a kid. It's just been I can't get away from it. I've got away from it for a few years, but I was always researching horses and watching YouTube videos. So I'm very fortunate now. I can have 2 horses. So I'm in heaven.
There you go. Yeah. It's been a wild start to your MMA career, from the Freeman fight in your debut to going on that streak of highlight reel knockouts to, you had a couple of setbacks and then you bounced back with the big win back in January. We'll get into that last fight in a moment, but man, how would you describe this first just under 3 years of your Bellator career?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't crazy. Yeah, it's been really crazy because I've come from wrestling. You lose a match or whatever, you take second at the world championships, you take third, but there's always there's always a tournament to go and get your confidence back and redeem yourself. With MMA, it's a little bit different because you're not fighting every week and you're not, it's every couple of months. So I think the biggest thing is waiting. You're waiting and your mind's constantly going. And then now, obviously, with social media and commentators, they always have their 2 cents of what's going on or what you need to do. So it was a roller coaster ride, but luckily for me, I'm a wrestler. We bounce back from losses, all kinds of things. I'm pretty strong in that aspect, but there's nothing to it. I just picked myself up and got back in the gym. People ask me, "Oh, it's so crazy, it's so hard," but shit happens, man, in business and life, and if you're gonna let 1, 2, 3 things set you back and not pursue your dreams, then they probably weren't your dreams in the first place.
It's interesting you say that people are putting in their 2 cents, because as you're going through that 4-fight winning streak and you're having all these viral moments on social media and all, you got MMA fans and media members all over the place saying, well, we'll see what happens when he gets tested by a veteran. And yet they don't keep in mind that you knocked out Leandro Higo, who was a veteran in his own right. And then after the Corrales fight, that fight was absolutely wild and bonkers. Became Bellator moved him up too quickly. So it's got to kind of be tough being in an almost can't win situation so young in your career, right? Did that start to get to you at all?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just there's so many people that you meet or this or that. Like, I have no problem taking criticism. That's no problem, by coaches, by other, even fans sometimes. But it just gets really old when you constantly you meet somebody and then they start talking. Oh, well, maybe you should have done this. You need to do this. It's like you have no clue of what's going on in MMA. You don't know what it's like to be in a cage. There's so many things. So, and you get reporters, you get people that say, well, you need to do this. You need to go train with this guy. You need to do this. It's like, slow your roll. Just let me do my thing. I can figure this out. I won, a lot of things growing up, and MMA is a whole completely different beast. It's not wrestling, it's not boxing, and I'm still figuring it out. But that's what makes the sport so crazy. Is one, there's so many disciplines that you need to train. There's so many variables that go into a fight. So I take people's criticism. Sometimes I take a little bit of what they say and I'm very appreciative, and then sometimes I just goes through one ear and out the other. So everybody's got their opinions, but I've got a strong team. I've got great coaches around me, and that's the people that I really need to listen to. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what outsiders think, reporters. It doesn't mean shit.
After that Corrales fight, you took on Adam Borch at MSG, and you were looking really good in that fight. Like, you were wrestling. People were like, "Oh, he's wrestling. Look at him!" And you were winning pretty much every second of that fight until you got caught with that flying knee. And I'm sure it was frustrating to lose that fight in the manner that you did, or just to lose in general. But what were you able to at least take away from that night against Adam Borch at MSG?
Yeah, I think I was winning that fight. I even laid the groundwork on how to beat him. He's great striker, but not a very good grappler. Not very good at wrestling, anything like that. He's a tough fighter. He beat me, obviously, but I just can't take a blind shot. I think the biggest thing for me is I was so I just wanted to wrestle, because that's what I was working on, just wrestling and grappling, and I forgot about my hands. I didn't really throw a lot of combinations like I wanted to. I just was so focused on just getting the takedown, and I won't make that mistake, especially if I want to get the takedown. I got to put my hand, I got to mix up my punches a little bit into the takedown and throw with some force like I usually do. I don't think in that fight I didn't really throw any, hard punches. And it just worked. I worked on a lot of grappling after that fight. I worked on so much grappling, and it's gotten so much better since that fight. I can't tell you how much jiu-jitsu, grappling, wrestling, ground and pound I did after that fight. So it was a wake-up call that I needed to figure out some things as far as my entries on the takedowns.
Would you say that's probably the biggest thing you've changed from the Borch fight heading into that last fight? Was there something maybe even from a mental perspective that clicked that you maybe hadn't quite tapped into prior? What do you think were those biggest changes for you coming out of that MSG fight?
Yeah, just not getting your mind set on one thing. I was like, before that fight, I was just like, oh, I got to get the takedown. And I forgot about I forgot about even my hands. I probably should have used my hands a little bit more and to get myself into the takedown. But I think the biggest thing is just not focusing on one thing. Just let the fight happen. Be aware, be cautious, and just let the fight happen.
A lot of eyes were on you at Bellator 238. Like, despite being on the prelims for the event, anybody that I talked to about the event, it was like, if you asked them what were the big storylines heading into that event, you were right at the top of everybody's list because of what had happened in the last couple of fights. How would you describe the way you approached that fight in January? Did you feel any extra pressure at all, knowing that you had lost those two previous fights? Yeah, that's a good question. Now looking back, I didn't really even think about, oh man, I have to win this fight. I have to do this. I just was, 7 months since the last fight, I just was training on getting better. That's all I was, focused on. And working with the coaches here in New Mexico, Greg before the fight especially was just saying, don't put any pressure on yourself as far as you need to do this, you need to do that. Like I said, just let the fight happen. You're well prepared, and I just felt confident going in there. I knew. The thing is that we studied him to a T. We knew everything that he was going to throw, especially with the leg kicks. I knew the leg kicks were coming, the kicks were coming, and I knew I can get the takedown, use my ground and pound, and
the first round, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you don't, a lot of people get messages like, oh, you need to use your wrestling more. Absolutely, I do. But the last fight, I did use my wrestling. I think I ground and pounded him like the whole first round. And in the second round, I hit him with the left hook, and he was out, So that fight, I felt like it was a progression to, getting my confidence and getting cage time. So that was a good fight for me and my team.
What did it feel like when you landed that left hook? Because you've had some great knockouts in your career to this point, but coming off those 2 losses to land that left hook and have the performance that you had, like what did that all feel like once the ref pulled you off?
It felt good. It felt really good just to finally get a win. I think I went like almost a year without a win, and battling stuff, just like trying to figure the game out. Can I? I've always knew I always know I can do it. It's just knowing you just want to get back in the cage to get a win, and it was a good stepping stone for us for sure. Like with my coaches, the thing is, I really liked the knockout was great. I really liked the knockout, of course, but I really liked going back to the corner and hearing what the coaches had to say, just because it's experience. I never, even the Madison Square Garden fight, I think I went back to the corner and I don't even really remember what Greg was saying or Six Gun. In LA, I remember going back to the corner. I was calm. I listened to the coaches. I knew I can tell you everything that they said right now, and I think that was a big stepping stone for me. It might sound kind of dumb, but it was just a good, man, I get to go sit down on the stool. I get to hear Coach Greg, what he has to say, what Coach Gibson has to say, what Tusa has to say, and I think that was a big stepping stone for me.
That's huge. I mean, a lot of fighters tell me over the years that that's a turning point for them. They hear their coaches, they hear even like instructions in the corner that they never heard before. Do you feel like you've found something with Jackson Wink and those guys? Because I know you've bounced around, you bet it's to some different places. What specifically about Jackson Wink made you feel like this is it? I feel like I'm home now.
Well, from the first time I walked in there and like working with Coach Greg, and I just felt a good connection. I like how Albuquerque. I love Albuquerque. I love the city. It's not a lot of driving like LA. I have to go here, go there, go there. It's kind of hard for me. And for me, it's not about like having. It's about learning how to fight and learning and putting it together. So I'm around coaches that give me a lot of time, and I'm eager to learn and figure this thing out. So it's just being in one spot 2-3 times a day. I'm in the gym, just all right, working on this, working on different aspects of MMA, and that's what I really needed, to be in one location and just learning how to fight. So I think I know this place is the place for me. So
with everything going on in the world, Bellator obviously has postponed events indefinitely, and Scott Coker hopes to be back up and running in the summertime. And there's talks about hosting events at Hollywood Sound, at some sort of Hollywood soundstage or something over the summer. I know you can get some work in when you can, but with the gathering bans and limitations, it's not exactly the same like you alluded to. But if you had it your way, when would you like to return? Is there any sort of time frame you have in mind if all goes well and it's a perfect world?
Yeah, I don't have a perfect time. The thing is I'm always in shape. I'm always staying active and not watching what I eat pretty clean all the time. But for me, I can fight whenever, but I want to be able to have an 8-10 week camp with my coaches. That's the most important thing. A lot of people will take fights on short notice, and I give them a lot of props, but I like to be prepared going into a fight. I like to be on the same page with my coaches, and that's something that I'll have to sit down with my manager Ali and the coaches that I have here and figure out when is the best time for us, because I'm young in my career, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't need to take a fight to because I need to feed a family or this or that. I'm good. I live within my means, and I don't need to fight right now. Like, I need to fight next week because I need to feed my kids or something like that. I'm here in Albuquerque just training. I've got everything dialed in, and I want to make sure I'm on the same page with my coaches. The 8-10 week training camp going into a fight, I don't think I'll feel a little bit of anxiety if it's like, oh, you're fighting this and you only have 3 weeks to prepare. That's not me. So we'll sit down with the coaches when this quarantine is over with, and we'll see what they have to say. And I got to spar. I got to see where I'm at. I got to how I feel with the grappling and with the sparring, and so many variables that go into it. So we'll see.
So you'd probably want to wait until and see once Bellator actually puts an event on. Then you kind of know, like, all right, at least we're back up and running. Then you can start thinking about a fight and putting an 8 to 10 week camp together. Correct?
Yeah. That's. I haven't heard anything from Bellator, to be honest with you. So I don't even know what's going on. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to train for anything if you just stay in shape. But I'm not going to go beat myself up and run up a mountain and try to go crazy with the conditioning. Because you don't know, maybe I might fight in September. I may fight in October. I don't know anything at this point right now. So,
I mean, it doesn't really affect you too much, but Bellator, obviously, they've made the decision to hang back and wait for everything to turn the corner. And then across the pond, you get the UFC. They're looking at it in a totally opposite way. Let's get back to normal, at least as best as we can, and try to get some fights going here. Yeah. What is sort of your take on how things are being handled by these promotions when it comes to COVID-19 and everything that's going on?
Yeah, I think I could see both sides. I honestly can see both sides. I could see either UFC putting on fights. I mean, at the end of there's a lot of fighters that need to make money, and that's what they do. They gotta fight, and the UFC has a lot of resources, and they're able to put on fights. More power to them. I'm not hating on anybody, because it's like, I have friends that fight for the UFC, and that's how they feed their family. And Bellator, I could see where they're coming from. They want to take the precautions, and they want to, whatever they feel is right. More power to them. I'm not mad at anybody, But like I said, if you can minimize it, no crowds, no nothing, like what Scott was saying, hey, that sounds good to me. That sounds good to me. Fight, no crowd. So I could see both sides. I'm not hating or like, oh, they're Dana's doing what's best for his company, and Scott's doing what's best for his company, and it's simple as that.
Yeah.
I'm fine. There's not much I can really say.
Yeah.
I can't go on and say, oh, they need to do this, because I don't know what goes on behind closed doors in the business side of that. It's something that's super, super new to me, like I said, I don't know anything about that. They have their ways, and they have their company, they have their numbers that they need to meet and stuff. And hey, whatever they feel is best, that's on them.
Yeah, that's above our pay grade, Aaron. We don't need to be thinking about the business side of all of this. But you've been with Bellator for all 8 of your fights, and I'm not sure what your contract looks like. But do you still have like a bunch of fights left with them? Where does that all stand, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so I still have some time with Bellator. So yeah, I'll be fighting with them for a little while. Like as far as the contract and things like that, I still have some time with them. So, yeah, I'll be. I don't know I got to go look and read like the exact dates of when the contract ends, but I still have some time with them. So,
do you feel like you'd want to be with them your entire career? I mean, you're a competitor, and you've been a part of wrestling, and you've been part of boxing, and now you're in MMA. From a competitive standpoint, do you think you may want to explore and test the waters in other spots in the future? I mean, you're only 23 years old, so you have plenty of time to think about it.
Yeah. Of course, I'm young, and then as far as that question, my job is just to be able to put on performances and put on highlight reels like I've done before. And I think when the time comes, that's why we have managers. I think when that time comes, I'm going to sit down with Ali and my team and figure out what's best for us. But Bellator has been very, very good to me. I've had some ups and downs with them, so they've treated me very, very well. But like at the end of the day, it's a business. I got to sit down with my team and figure out what's best for us. And when that time comes, I'll leave. I'll let the negotiating go with Ali, and we'll see. But my job right now is just to put on great fights, which I'm gearing up to do. Doing a lot of studying, and I can't wait to get back in the cage. I can't wait.
Yeah, you've always been a line 'em up kind of a guy for Bellator. You're not really the call out type. You don't talk trash really. You just go in there, and like you said, you go in there and fight. But is there someone that sticks out that you feel maybe a good step for your next fight that can challenge you, and that maybe you wouldn't mind punching in the face, or you're still just gonna kind of take whatever Bellator gives you and just do your darn thing?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I mean, you can call anybody call people out, and it's obviously beyond your control. It's with Bellator. So yeah, whatever Bellator decides to give me, I leave that up to my manager Ali. I'm not. He says, hey, you're fighting this guy, and hey, let's do it. That's just kind of how I am, and I don't think I'm really in a position right now to be like, hey, I need to fight this guy, fight that guy. Because even if I do call them out, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna fight them with Bellator. So, of course, there's a lot of guys you want to fight, but we'll just take it one step at a time and put on some performances and see where that goes. But yeah, we'll just, like I said, I'll just stay in my lane right now and get my cage time.
There's so many fighters out there who are in the sport that are trying to make it at a young age. And I feel like now, especially in 2020, it's a really interesting time because there are kids who at 10, 11, 12 years old, their goal isn't to be firefighters and police officers. They want to be Bellator champions and MMA professional fighters. They want to fight on television, maybe even sooner, that have been kids that have been training their entire lives since they were like 6, 7, 8 years old with dreams of being a professional fighter. What advice would you give to some of these younger fighters looking to make MMA their career choice over the next few years? Like, what would you say if someone who's 15, 16 years old that wants to get into the sport came up to you and asked you that question? What kind of advice would you give them?
The only advice I give them is just take your time and work. And when you're starting off in your career, just surround yourself with a good team, good coaches, and take your time. There's no rush to be the youngest world champion. If it comes your way, great, and you're prepared for it, great. But take your time and just work your ass off. And that's the only thing I can possibly say. Work your ass off and don't stop. Don't stop. It's very, very simple. But when you do turn pro, take your time and make sure your team is on the same page as far as everything, and do what's best for you. Not anybody else. Do what's best for you.
Well said, Aaron. Great stuff. I really appreciate the time, man. The last time we had spoken was right before the Lee Morrison fight a couple of years back. It was one that I remembered for sure. I think you got Dylan Dennis's attention after that conversation, if I recall. But it was great chat with you again, man. Stay healthy, stay safe. I wish you all the best during this crazy time in the world. Enjoy the horses, and hopefully you get back in that octagon or that cage sooner rather than later, man.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. All the best to you and your family, and stay safe. Hopefully this is over soon.
All right. Thanks, brother. Take care.
You as well.